Permission to approach the bench and tender a copy.
You may. Keep this in our collection.
Now, Mr. Johnson, the brochure describes the Hepburn dive as a dive of 170 feet.
That's correct.
It describes it as a wreck dive.
Yes, that is correct.
And it describes it as a technical dive.
Yes.
And you know, based on the affidavits that you reviewed, that the Allens reviewed this information before diving to the Hepburn, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Right. Now, Mr. Johnson, on July 7th, there was a conversation about the buddy system between Hayden Hathaway and Andy Allen, right? Or Lee Allen, excuse me.
Yes, I believe so.
And Hayden Hathaway told Lee Allen that diving with Reggie Rogers was not ideal, right?
Yes, that's
Objection, Your Honor, to hearsay.
Okay, why is what Hayden Hathaway said not hearsay?
Again, Your Honor, this is going not for the truth of the matter asserted, but rather for its effect on the listener, in this case, Lee Allen, and his decision to dive with a dive buddy that was described as not ideal by Ms. Hathaway.
Okay, so counsel, again, will you be happy if we give the standard limiting instruction?
Yes, Your Honor, as long as the limiting instruction is given to that particular statement. I withdraw my objection again.
Oh, okay, you're not withdrawing your objection, you're simply stating you'll be happy with this
Yes, sir.
solution. Okay, so, again, the statement will be admitted, and I will give a limiting instruction to the jury. You may continue, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. So, just to be clear, Ms. Hathaway told Lee Allen that diving with Reggie Rogers wasn't ideal.
Yes, and it certainly wasn't.
And Ms. Hathaway also told Lee Allen that Mr. Rogers' responsibilities might become split underwater.
Yes,
And she asked Lee Allen if Lee was willing to take that risk.
I believe she did ask that.
And Lee said yes.
I believe so, yes.
Now, during the dive, Mr. Rogers was forced to help another diver, right?
That is correct. He had to help Frankie Fernandez after he got caught in that enclosure we spoke about earlier.
And because he had to help Ms. Fernandez, he had to make a decision about Lee Allen, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That was a specific instance in which his attention was divided.
And he decided to send Lee Allen through the first level of the wreck, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Mr. Rogers sent Lee Allen to rejoin the rest of the group as far as I understand.
And that path included multiple safeguards, right?
Yes, I believe there was an orange rope delineating the way out.
Right, and that orange rope was a fluorescent orange, right?
Yes,
And that's the most visible color at any depth.
that's correct.
And that it's in your opinion, the orange rope clearly marked the path through the first level.
Yes,
And in your opinion, the rope correctly marked the path through the first level.
yes, I believe the rope was laid accurate.
And this orange rope did not go to the second level, did it?
No, there was a yellow rope going to the second level.
And you think that it is unlikely that Lee Allen was confused about the correct path to follow.
That's correct. I have no fault with any actions Neptune took in the water on that day. The fault I have is what put them in there in the first place.
So as a yes to my question, you think it's unlikely that Lee Allen became confused about where to go.
That is what I found, correct.
But you do know that Lee Allen had repeatedly expressed a desire to visit the second level.
Yes, I believe that Lee Allen did want to visit the second level. It's natural for customers to want to go deeper and explore different things.
And you also know that Mr. Rogers repeatedly told Lee not to go there.
That's correct.
And however, Lee was found on the second level.
Yes, Lee was unfortunately found at the second level of the Hepburn.
And it's your opinion that if Lee had stayed on the first level, Lee should have been fine.
Well, I certainly can't speak to that. I know that if Lee was sent alone and Lee ended up on the second level, I do believe that Lee Allen may have put herself in that position, but that's all I can say.
Well, that's right, Mr. Johnson. You think the most likely reason for Lee's presence on that second level was Lee's desire to be there.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, to an improper opinion.
Okay, why is this improper?
She's asking me to testify as to why Lee Allen was on the second level. Mr. Johnson is an expert in industry protocol and scuba diving safety standards. He's not an expert in things like ocean currents, the way the ocean works, and therefore cannot give an opinion as to this matter.
Okay, why is this, is that right?
Your Honor, on direct, opposing counsel spent a lot of time discussing with Mr. Johnson his qualifications as a diver, how many dives he'd been on, how many dives he'd led. He's obviously qualified to talk about what can occur underwater, especially in situations such as the Hepburn. Furthermore, if I'm improper, Mr. Johnson wrote a report in which he discusses the various reasons behind Lee Allen's presence on the second level.
Okay, we haven't seen that report. I have a question for the court reporter. Did I hear testimony that you're a professor of physics?
I'm an adjunct professor that teaches one course called the Science of Scuba Diving.
Okay, but it's in the physics department?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I think if he's in the physics department, he's enough of a scientist that for the pathetic standards of Midlands on experts that you get above it. So I'm going to overrule the objection.
So again, just to be clear, you think the most likely reason for Lee's presence on the second level was Lee's desire to be there?
That is correct.
Now, Mr. Johnson, finally, I want to talk to you a little bit about why you're here today. You published an editorial about today's case, right?
I did.
And you published that editorial on August 22nd, 2011.
Yes, right after the Hepburn incident.
It was about a month after Lee passed away.
That's correct.
And when you wrote this article, you didn't really know many details about today's case, did you?
No, the article focused mostly on Neptune's practices as I understood them. It had little to do with Lee Allen's case in particular. My investigation for that came later.
Well, that's right. You didn't even know how many dives Lee Allen had been on.
No, and that's not really what the report was about. It was about Neptune's practices.
So that's a yes, you didn't know how many dives Lee had been on.
That's correct.
And you said you didn't want to know this information?
It wasn't necessary. I was writing an article on Neptune's policies. I wasn't writing it on Lee Allen's particular circumstance. I was hired later for that investigation.
And you said you didn't need to know this information.
That's correct.
However, that didn't stop you about talking about Neptune's industry rankings in a number of fields, did it?
I spoke about Neptune's safety standards. That's correct.
Well, you said that Neptune was 4th in customers on an annual basis,
I did.
4th in profits,
That's correct.
1st in growth,
Yes,
and last in safety.
that's what I believe.
But that isn't exactly true, is it, Mr. Johnson?
Well, Neptune is ranked high in safety with several of our reports in the industry, but I don't believe those reports take into account their procedure. These reports take into account casualties. Just because Neptune hadn't had any casualties doesn't make them a safe company.
Well, that's right. Neptune hadn't had any casualties, right?
Objection, Your Honor, to improper character evidence.
What's improper about this?
Counsel is trying to characterize Neptune as a safe diving company in order to show action in conformity therewith, specifically to show that they, because they have acted safe in the past, would have acted safe with regard to this case.
Okay, what's your response, counsel?
We're not offering this for action in conformity therewith. We're offering this for impeachment purposes. Mr. Johnson published an editorial claiming that Neptune was last in safety, when the reality is that's simply not true.
But, okay, here's what's puzzling on impeachment. Namely, I'm not sure what the editorial, I mean, you're the one, they didn't put in the editorial. You put it in. So, that he once wrote an editorial that may have made claims that can be contested. Who cares? He may have written articles that may have written claims that are contested. I think you need to explain to me why the safety helps me understand, it helps the jury understand why reckless, without, as counsel pointing out, showing action and conformity thereto.
Your Honor, may I be heard on the editorial once more?
Okay.
This also goes towards the witness's bias and credibility, because if I may proffer, the motives for writing this editorial have a lot to do with the fact that Neptune is one of Scuba Challenge's, Mr. Johnson's company's biggest competitors, and therefore he may have been motivated to publish this editorial.
Okay, how about going on that line of questions then, and unless you have another reason for getting the safety thing in.
Okay, I'll move on, Your Honor.
Okay, move on. Everybody's happy. It'll be whatever testimony you heard will be stricken, and the objection is sustained.
Now, Mr. Johnson, Neptune has become your biggest competitor, right?
That's correct. They've been enormously successful.
And they're actually cutting into quite a big chunk of your company's profits.
Well, sure, that's natural whenever you have a new business join the field. It's quite a small family of businesses we have with scuba diving.
That's right, they're hurting your company's profits.
And they have cost us some money, yes.
But in fact, they're actually personally costing you millions, right?
Yes, they have been enormously successful, and Scuba Challenge's profits have suffered because of that.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect, counsel?
No redirect, Your Honor. I would ask my witness to be allowed to step down.
Okay.